Hey, badass crew. I want to share my personal experience with the X39 LifeWave patch. My friend John Kadori introduced me to Eddie V, who gifted me some X39 patches to try. Honestly, the first few days, I didn't really feel any different. Then I went dancing with one of my besties. I thought for sure when I woke up the next morning that I'd be stiff and sore, but on the contrary, I actually hopped out of bed ready to take on the day. I'm continuing to stay on the X39 because I'm also seeing the difference in my friend John, and I want to get those kind of results. I'll keep you posted on my experience. Go to reactivate stem cells.com / how X39 works to get the 4-minute video explaining how this little patch does so much.
Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jennie will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. And I am so stoked about today's interview. My guest with James I. Bond. So first of all, I can now say, not only have I interviewed Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen and Tom Schreider, but I can also say I interviewed James Bond. I mean, who else gets to say that? That's so freaking cool. Let me tell you, because this is not the James Bond that you guys are probably thinking of. So James I. Bond is one of America's leading behavioral management specialists and author of the award-winning book, Brain Glue, the book that Jack Canfield calls mind-blowing. Clearly one of the most powerful persuasion books I've ever experienced. And y'all know how I feel about Jack freaking Canfield, because we know that's how we address Jack on the show, is Jack freaking Canfield. If he's saying this, then I was like, I have to know more about this. So let me tell you more about James I. Bond. For 13 years, he ran one of Southern California's leading behavioral management firms, working with a who's who of American business. Early in his career, he ran an advertising agency in Montreal, Canada, and he is a workshop leader and past workshop chairman for the resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration, and has been a featured guest speaker at 3 Southern California universities. So, James, welcome to the show.
Oh, Jennie, thank you for having me. I was almost late because I was listening to so many of your podcasts. I got stuck in, wait. You are awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so, James, give us a little bit more about your history and how you got to the book, writing the book, Brain Glue.
So let me start with this, okay? Having a great idea is not enough. You have to be able to sell it. Having a great product is not enough. You have to be able to sell it. And so I uncovered something that's blowing people's mind and changing the way they're selling their ideas and products. And like you were saying, Jack Canfield, it blew his mind. He actually got pissed off at me. I was talking with him. He said, you just pissed me off. I said, I'm sorry. He said, I started just looking at your book and I couldn't put the damn thing down. I said, I'm sorry. Can I get that as a quote? And he said, he's getting copies for everybody in his company. He wants everybody not just reading it, but applying it, because it's really easy to apply when they go through this. And so it really blew my mind. Actually, and I'm going to say this, okay? The title of my book was different, okay? The title of my book was logical. I actually started with a title of a book that said, Dump Your Half-Ass Marketing Strategy, okay?
Okay.
Because I was in my ass period, okay? Because that's a brain trigger. Like, Big Ass Fans, okay? When Kerry Smith changed the name of his company to Big Ass Fans, sales exploded. He ended up selling it after 15 years for $500 million. Okay.
Wow.
He had, it was called JLB or something, fan company or something. He bought it from a friend when he started making some money. And he was selling big fans that go in farms and stuff like that. And and he thought that's really cool. He could sell it to like warehouses can use it, and people that want, in a farm, in a barn, you're not gonna put an air conditioner if you have horses and cows. You put a fan.
Right.
And so he had really big fans, and people didn't understand how big the fans were. So he said one day he was telling somebody it's a big ass fan, and the guy started laughing. Oh, okay, you got me. And he said maybe I should run ads for big ass fans. Just saying that, sales exploded. He said maybe I should change the name of the company to Big Ass Fans. And he has this cute, hilarious picture of a donkey's butt facing you, this face off in the distance looking at you. And it says Big Ass Fans. It's an ass with an ass.
Right. Oh.
And sales exploded. And so, in fact, he even said this thing, which I thought was interesting, that I was making so much money, I started selling other products, and then I realized that was distracting me from fans. And I decided to stop selling all these other products and just focus on all the different versions of fans. And then he sold it for $500 million. But so that was my ass week, okay?
Right.
So I said, dump your half-ass marketing strategy. Let's do that. Well, Amazon said, we're doing intensive improvement in our marketing, and we don't want anybody with a swear word to be promoting their book on Amazon. You can promote it everywhere else, but not on Amazon. So I was like, so I got permission from them to change the title, and I made a mistake. I chose a logical title. Okay, it's Sell More with a Right Brain Marketing Strategy. By the way, people hate that title because they can never remember it.
Right.
First of all, and second of all, they say look up James Bond. You get Sean Connery and all the other ones, so you can't even find my books. But so Jack Canfield said, I love your book, but you torture us. You forced all of us to be emotional selling and not logical, and you have a damn logical title, Sell More with Right Brain Marketing Strategy. I'll give you all the promotions and video of me telling how much I love your book and everything else on one condition. You got to change the title to Brain Glue. The whole book's about brain glue. I'm like, do I have to? I've got like 80 responses. You get past about 100 responses, reviews. Yeah. And Amazon helps promote your book too. And he said, no, you got to change the title. I said, okay, I changed the title. He's right. I've got lots of reviews. But it was just, he tortured me because I came up with this, I'm selling everybody on emotional selling, and I have a logical title. He was right.
Brilliant.
But so I discovered this thing, okay? I'm originally from Montreal. I've lived in Southern California for 37 years. Our middle daughter, we gave her the initials LA, Lauren Asia, AJA, so that we'd remember how long we've been living in Southern California. Lauren's 37. Okay, we've been here 37 years. Actually, it's funny because I gave her her middle name is Asia, AJA, and I named it after Steely Dan album, Asia, and they have a song called Asia. Yeah. So 2 years ago, Lauren says to me, hey, Dad, I love the name Lauren Asia, and everybody loves Asia. Why do you name me Asia? I said, well, because the Steely Dan album was very creative, and I thought it would be really a fun name to give you, Asia. Anyway, she calls me back about an hour later and says, I just listened to that song. I hate that song. I'm like, I'm sorry. She says it's grown on her,
Yeah.
Like I said, but it's creative. You're creative. And she is, so it really helped. But anyway, so when I was in Montreal, I worked my way up. I had an advertising agency, and I worked my way up to win major companies, some of the world's biggest companies, Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Avon Cosmetics, Abbott Laboratories, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there, even though I'm not a drinker. And they're like, I won Seagram's. Christmas time, we get like 48 bottles of booze that we photograph and do ads for them. Everything else, and they say, enjoy Christmas, they're all yours. I'm like, but I don't drink. That's why, have fun. Yeah. Anyway, it's a whole other story. But so I had the opportunity, because I'd won so many clients, I had the opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. And of course, I came up with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. Not emotional, logical, right?
Right.
And then we lost. And I saw what I lost to, what our company lost to. And it was a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain, and cracking the shell and dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? And when I saw the ad, two things happened. The first one was I recognized this was infinitely more powerful and profound than the ad I had. I mean, this was like emotionally powerful. But the second thing I realized was this was emotional selling, something I had no idea how to do. Now, I can do logic. I'll tell you, don't do it because of this, because of this, because of this, and everything else. This was emotional selling, an egg dropping into a frying pan and say, there's your brain frying on drugs. I mean, that was profound. And it scared me. But it also, the scientist in me came out, and I started thinking, they don't teach emotional selling in school. This is emotional selling. It's not logic. And so how can I, learn emotional selling? I look for books in a library. There's superficial things, but nobody really talks about emotional selling. So I love 3x5 cards. I always carry them around because every time I see something that's motivating, I go, oh, wow, look at that. And I'll write it down on a card or get an idea. And so I wrote your brain on drugs on a 3x5 card. And then next to my computer, I put a box and I call it the passion box. And I said, every time I see an ad or hear something that's emotionally powerful, instead of trying to figure it out because I don't really understand what it is yet, let me, tear it out of a magazine or write it down on a 3x5 card, put it in the box in the hopes that eventually there'll be so many examples that I could take a look at it and figure out how to create emotional selling. Mm-hmm. So, and my wife hated going to doctor's offices with me. You go to a doctor's office, they have different magazines than you have at home. I'm looking through Vogue magazine. I go, oh, wow. She goes, do not tear it out of the magazine. I said, no, look at this. This is amazing. She would sit far away. I do not know that guy, okay? I had a lot of stuff in my passion box that was overflowing. So about 10 years later, we had moved to Southern California, and I met John Gray. And John Gray wrote this most incredible book ever called Men, Women, and Relationships. And he was frustrated. He was telling me I was frustrated because people who read the book said, oh, this is the best relationship book I've ever read. This is profound. And yet almost nobody was buying the book. So one day he's at a webinar. He's doing a seminar. He's doing a seminar to try to promote the book. And he says something, and all the women in the audience start laughing like crazy. And all the men look at the women like, and what are you laughing at? What did he say that was so funny? And so he says, you see, there's some things that a woman laughs at that a man doesn't laugh at. There's some things that men find funny that women don't find funny. And there's some things that everybody finds funny. So one of the women says, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet are men from? Do you think men are from? And he goes, I guess men are from Mars. And everybody in the audience started laughing. He's telling me, so when he got home, he's thinking, if men are from Mars, where are women from? I guess women are from Venus because Venus is the god of love. And then he goes, what if I change the title of my book? Because nobody's buying it anyway. He sold like 20,000 copies, which isn't a lot of books at all. And he goes, what if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And then refer to it throughout the book with little quotes and stuff. But basically, it's the same book. What do you think happened? As we all know, Men Are From Mars,
Right, it exploded. Yeah.
You got it. He sold almost overnight 500,000 copies. He's like, whoa, then 1 million, then 2 million, then 5 million. In my book, I made a mistake, okay? I said he sold 10 million copies. Well, Steve Harrison, guy that helped him, with marketing. And I was talking to Steve, and Steve said, no, you're wrong. We're already over 50 million books sold. 50 million? I said, Steve, he said, you can talk all you want, but we already know the math on this. He went from 20,000 to 50 million books sold, all because he changed the title? Wow. And so when I got home, I was going to take the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and put it in my passion box. And then I thought, wait a second, men are not really from a different planet. I know women, a lot of you women think we are. We act like it, okay, but we're not really. But it's a metaphor. It's basically saying men are so different from women that it's like they're from a different planet like Mars, and women are from a different planet like, it's a metaphor. And I went like, wait a second. The egg dropped into the frying pan is also a metaphor because that's not a brain he was holding. It was an egg he was holding. And yet It's a metaphor. They're saying your brain is like an egg. They're probably thinking, and they're probably sitting around the table and going, so we have to come up with an ad for it. So what happens when you take a lot of drugs? I guess it fries your brain. What else gets fried? Eggs. Why don't we take an egg and put it into a frying pan that's really sizzling, increase the sizzling sound so people can really hear it, and then say, there's your sizzling brain on drugs. That's how they came up with it. And I went like, is metaphors the secret to emotional selling? Or at least one of the secrets? So I dumped the passion box on my bed because I needed a big space because I had lots of samples. And I discovered that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. I thought my brain, suddenly I started the patterns. And it's like, and everything we discover now, people who read the book Brain Glue, two things happen. I didn't invent brain glue. I want to say this. I invented the term brain glue. But brain glue has been around since people have been interacting.
Yeah.
And you start to recognize, oh, that's why it's so successful. That's why it's so successful. And so I started realizing this, and I worked with a construction company. As a consultant, it's fun. I mean, you know this. But as a consultant, it's fun because you get to practice on your clients, okay?
Yeah.
I had these three guys who, after 10 years, had reached $2 million in sales. That's not bad, right? $2 million in sales?
Mhm.
Ha, ha, ha. I got to practice brain glue with them. In 1 year, I took them from 2 to 10 million in sales, and they reached 32 million 2 years later. And it's all because I got to apply brain glue. What I did was I said to them, I love whiteboards, and I said, so let's make a shopping list of all the different types of clients you've worked with over the past 10 years. And it took a while, about an hour or so, when I was writing all these things on a whiteboard. What else? What else? What else? Who else? And then I said, let's play a game. Let's pretend you're going to focus on just one type of client and you're going to say no to everybody else. And then they said, no, we don't want to say no to clients. I said, I understand, but it's a game, okay? Ha ha, game, you know? Let's just pick one type of client you want to work with. That if you had to choose one out of all these, who would you choose? And so they came up with fire restoration for insurance companies. I had to ask, what the heck's that? You know, it was insurance companies have a client that has a fire, okay? And they said two things happen. One is if somebody has a fire in their house, the first thing we check is for the frame. If the frame is damaged, we have to tear down the whole house. But if it's not damaged, we want to put it up, make sure everything's fine, and restore it or fix it up. So I said, okay, fire restoration for insurance companies. So you'd work with insurance companies. They work with 2 insurance companies that had done this, but only had like 3 clients that ever worked with this way. But I said, so we need a brain glue tool. So what's the first, if their client has a fire, I had to repeat this a few times, you know, because they weren't used to this. If the client has a fire, what's the first word that comes to their brain? And they're going, oh, I don't know. I said, come on. If the client has a fire, what's the first word that comes to their brain?
Fire.
Going, fire, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's a fire word that we can use? Fire extinguisher. Why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? They started laughing and said, you think we should do that? I said, yeah, let's try it. I went with them to the first prospect they went to. And we said, so think of us as your fire extinguisher. Every time you have a client has a fire, call us. We're the fire extinguisher. We actually got the website firex.com, okay? And so just, call us. We're the fire extinguisher for you. And the client would laugh. On our way back to the client, to their office, the 3 construction workers in their company, the phone was ringing when we got in. They said, your client just called, and they said he actually has a client for you. Right now? Yeah, really. He was laughing for some reason. He said, I want the fire extinguisher, but it's stuck to the brain.
Right.
So let me give you an example of how brain glue works, okay? So let's say you invented a glue, a certain type of glue, and it's really powerful. So what would you call it? So let's use a metaphor, okay? You might call it elephant glue. It's as strong as an elephant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But there is one of the tools in brain glue called alliteration, the repetition of sounds, like Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, Lululemon, TikTok, I mean, my youngest daughter, I said, TikTok is a Chinese social media platform. She said, no, it's not. It's TikTok. She came back and said, oh, you're right. It is. Interesting, But you think if they called it the Chinese social media platform, it would be as successful as TikTok? Oh. But so for alliteration, repetition of sound. So glue, what's a word that rhymes, that sort of sounds the same sound as glue? Gorilla glue. Gorillas are strong. I have friends that were telling me about JB Weld, and they say JB Weld is much better than Gorilla Glue. Which one do you think is more successful? Gorilla Glue.
Gorilla Glue. I've actually heard of Gorilla Glue.
Exactly.
So I think I may even have some upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens. I'm going to drink just a touch for a second. Hold on.
Go right ahead.
But it works. It resonates, but it triggers the emotion centers of the brain. So let me give you another example, just so you can start to understand this, and I'll tell you why it works. And it sounds subtle. It's not, it's so subtle that people become billionaires using this. Okay. That's how subtle it is. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. So a mom and her son in Utah love Shark Tank. They're watching Shark Tank. And one day the mom turns to the son and says, we should create a product, see if we can invent a product and see if we can get on Shark Tank and maybe we could become really successful as a result of it. So, they didn't come up with one right away. You never come up with one right away. You have to think about it,
Yeah.
And so they were thinking about it for about a month. And the mom was constipated. She had a constipation problem. And so the doctor was telling her, when you're on the toilet, if you can raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the floor while you're on the toilet, it changes the shape of your body and it's easier to go to the bathroom. I don't want to get too much into this, but that's what it is.
Sure.
And so she went with her son. Maybe that's what we should create. It's a little toilet stool. And maybe we can make it like round so that it can fit behind the toilet, so, around the toilet. So, you don't have to use it. But if you're going to the bathroom to go poop or something, you just slide it out and put your feet on it. You're on the thing. Well, that's really great. And what do we want to call it? And they found a manufacturer to manufacture it for them, certain quantities. So what do we want to call it? Well, it's kind of a toilet stool. It's a toilet stool, but I don't like the name toilet stool. That doesn't sound good. My wife says they should have called it the stool, but I don't think that works. Okay, let me start there. I love my wife, but not that one. But they're thinking toilet stool, toilet. What's another word for toilet? Potty. And you're kind of squatting. Squatty potty. Let's call it the squatty potty. Sales exploded. Exploded. They didn't. They had no business experience, but they started advertising on Facebook. Facebook and stuff. And sales exploded. They couldn't even handle it. Get enough products to be able to sell them. They couldn't believe it. Then they got on Shark Tank, and many of the investors wanted to invest in them. A, because they had success, but B, because of the name Squatty Potty resonated with them. They went, "Oh, that's definitely going to be a hot selling product." They sold more than $100 million of Squatty Potties. 100. How many people?
I have 2 of those in my house.
There you go.
Because they work.
But it's because it resonates with the brain. So there's something called Hebb's Law. And Hebb's Law, you love psychology. I know this.
I do,
love
yes.
psychology. And so Hebb's Law says neurons that fire together, wire together, which basically means if you can trigger different parts of the brain when you say something, it wakes up every time they hear it. It triggers different parts of the brain. So like Gorilla Glue. So we know it's not gorilla. If I said Gorilla Glue, with a long pause, you'd be thinking Gorilla Glue. Okay, Gorilla Glue. Okay, it sticks the brain. And so things that activate different parts of the brain at the same time have a better chance of triggering the emotion centers of the brain where decisions happen. And it becomes so powerful that it actually makes it easier to sell your products and ideas. And I'll go through some: Gorilla Glue, Famous Amos, Hula Hoop, Chips Ahoy, Head and Shoulders. Head and Shoulders uses something called anchoring. Okay, anchoring works this way. So they knew, they created the company created a dandruff shampoo, and so they said it's Head and Shoulders. So what's something everybody knows? Well, almost all kids know head and shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. It's already in the brain. So let's call it Head and Shoulders, because people always almost smile when they hear the name Head and Shoulders. Okay. We have Best Buy, Build-A-Bear, Porta Potty, MailChimp. So Jomax Technologies. Okay. Bob Parsons created a tech company, an online tech company, so you can build your website. Okay. They called it Jomax Technologies. I think he lived in, I forget what state he lived in, but it was the street that he was on was Jomax Boulevard. Okay, I think in Oregon or something like that. I forget.
Okay.
And people, just like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, people loved the service he offered, but almost nobody was buying it. So he sat down with a couple of guys who were working with him, and he said, "Let's come up with a better name." So they were laughing, and they said, "How about Big Daddy?" And they said, they checked. Of course, it was gone. So what did they come up with? GoDaddy. They said, why don't we do GoDaddy? Daddy, okay, which is alliteration, repetition of sound. Sales exploded. He sold the company, I think, this last year for $3 billion. Wow. He started from scratch. So, I mean, do you think if it was still called Jomax Technologies, it would be as successful as GoDaddy?
No.
There's something about the triggering of the brain. I mean, it's just, it's just amazing. I mean, look at yours. I mean, what are we on? Badass direct sales. I mean, it's just badass. You think that's a trigger word, okay?
Right.
You know, it's
Exactly.
a
That's
trigger
the
word that
key.
goes, whoa. I mean, it says what you're saying, but it's a trigger word. And
Yeah.
trigger words are just really powerful. I love naked. I have this guy, his name is David Baer, Baer. And so as I'm talking to him, he and his partner are helping advertisers, people who do advertising, to make more money. And he has an advertising training company. And I forget the name of the company, which is funny because everybody does. So I said, hey, David, I got the name for your company. You got to change the name of your company. He said, to what? Bare Naked Advertising. Everyone will remember Bare Naked
Yes,
Advertising.
they will.
His partner said, that's a fabulous idea. And he goes, I don't know if I want the name Bake Naked with my name. So he never changed it. I don't know why he didn't, because nobody can remember the name of his company.
Oh,
But yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's just like it explodes and people go like, whoa, you know?
well,
I mean, I
that's
love Stephanie Germanotta. You know who she is?
yes, I
Who is she?
do. Lady Gaga.
You got it.
Yeah. No, I think this is so true because when you were talking about how just shifting the name of something changes how people react to it, relate to it, and then decide to purchase or not, that actually happened with my company. I've been doing the same coaching, right? Of course, I get a little bit better every year because I have my own coaches that help me get better, but I've been doing generally the same coaching for 7 years. But when I first started coaching, my first business was Level Up Coaching, which isn't bad, but it's also kind of, you know, like Level Up Coaching. Yeah, people want to level up. That's great. But when I started the podcast, Badass Direct Sales Mastery, all of a sudden, people started introducing me as the badass coach. No one introduced me as the level up coach. And I went, oh. So then I slowly started getting rid of the level up coaching. And this year went full on with my company is now Badass Direct Sales Mastery, which started with the podcast, but now is a full coaching, training, consulting program for network marketing companies, MLM. And sales have exploded this year because things were good with Level Up. But with Badass, it's just, whoosh, it's going through the roof now because people are seeing it differently. They're connecting to it differently, just like you said.
It wakes up the brain. That's what it does. We don't realize that people are so overwhelmed with knowledge and what's going on. And you can talk to somebody and they're going like, it's raining outside. Did I forget to close the windows of my car? You know, am I having a fight with my wife or my child? Or, you know, did I just win a client? Now we have to figure out how to do this. And now you're talking to them. They're going to go, oh, yeah, yeah. And so what do you think? And they go, well, let me think about it. You know, they're not really thinking about it because their brain isn't woken up. So here's an example that sort of explains this. So I have a TV next to my computer and I'm working on a computer and there's a commercial on. I don't normally have it on, but I had it on for whatever reason. And they had Johnny Bench, who's a famous baseball player in the Hall of Fame. I don't really know him. I'm not a big baseball fan, but that's it. But blah, he's talking about this thing called Blue Emu, which is anti-arthritis cream. You put it on your joints and stuff like that. And it makes you feel better. I'm not even listening. He's going, no, Blue Emu. It works fast and you won't stink. What did he just say? Stink is a trigger word. What did he just say?
Yeah.
Now, from that point forward, I was listening in detail to the commercial and watching it because he triggered my word, like badass. Okay. People hear badass and it triggers the word. Okay. I love this. What does Richard Branson, Madonna, and olive oil have in common?
Virgin.
You got it. You got it. Virgin olive oil, like a virgin. That was the song. She had lots of songs, but that's the song that turned her into a blockbuster.
Yeah, it did.
And Richard Branson dropped out of high school, borrowed some money from his dad, and started a magazine to help musicians. Okay. And then he decided, because he was so successful with the magazine, that he would start a record company to produce records. And he needed a name, but he knew he didn't have a lot of money to spend. And so he was brainstorming with his partner and he came up with Virgin Records. He ended up winning clients like the Rolling Stones and all these other people, okay, with the help of that name. In fact, he recognized the name Virgin is so powerful, he started getting all these other Virgin things. I know somebody in Texas, I'm in Southern California, but she's in Texas, and she said, oh, yeah, we got Virgin hotels everywhere. Really? Yeah, it's his hotels. He's got Virgin Airlines, Virgin Galactic, and all that stuff because he recognizes it grabs your attention.
Yeah.
Huh. And so, yeah, so when you realize that there's something that wakes up the brain, uh, so Eve Ensler created a play, a one-person play that was off Broadway, very successful because she came up with the name. Okay, in fact, it was so successful that even HBO has it. Okay, doing a show on it. Not only is she off Broadway, and it's just and tons of people. I know so many people, mostly women, but men too, that go in to see it. And it's basically about how tough a women have to go through in life. You know this. Okay, if she called it a tough life for women or something, you think it would be as successful as the vagina monologues? Vagina monologue. People go like, what? What is it called?
Right? Oh my gosh,
Vagina
they said the V word.
That's right,
Shock.
exactly. I'm from Montreal, okay? So I remember as a young kids were floored by Regina, Saskatchewan, because what does it sound like? Regina, okay?
Yeah.
So they ran an advertising campaign to improve tourism because people don't know Regina really. So they came up with a slogan. They did it for 2 years, and then they apologized. Ha ha ha! After their sales tripled, their tourism tripled, they apologized and said, "We didn't know we were going to offend people." Guess what? If it was you were doing an ad for Regina, Saskatchewan, what would the ad be? Check this out.
Regina rhymes with
Fun. That's exactly Regina. It rhymes with fun. Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, and Madonna in their concerts actually said, "I got to tell you this place. You might want to visit it. It's Regina. It rhymes with fun." They would actually shared it. People had it on their T-shirts and bumper stickers on their cars. They just like laughed like crazy. And of course, you go to Regina.com and it takes you to their website. It says Regina, yes, it rhymes with fun. And it goes through it. After the 2 years, they'd stopped that, which I don't know why they did, but sorry, we didn't know we were going to offend people. Yeah, right.
Oh
But
my
it takes
gosh,
something
I
that you've
love
never
it.
heard of and wakes up your brain. And people go like, what? It's like badass. It wakes up the brain and they're listening to what the rest of it is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay. And now you've woken up the brain enough that they're listening to the rest of what you're saying. So, it's
Yeah.
just, it's amazing how it works. It's just
Yeah.
amazing how it works. I love this guy, Bobby Flay. I don't know him, but a lot of people know him. He's a chef online
Uh-huh.
on TV on the Food Network. And so they loved him, and they said, "We want to create a show for you, but we need to come up with a good name for it." So he said, "I want to, my expertise will be on selling grilled food. We'll show you how to grill stuff and make it look good, make it taste good when it's grilled and everything else." So he's going like grill. What's another word that sounds like grill? Girl. Oh, Boy Meets Girl. Why don't I call it Boy Meets Grill? Boy Meets Grill became a blockbuster of success. That's anchoring, where you're taking something that's already in the brain and just twisting it slightly so that you can,
Right.
use it for your own, because it's already stuck in the brain. We know it's stuck in the brain, so you want to just turn them. So every time they think of, vagina monologues,
Exactly.
every time they
Right.
think of, something like that, like virgin, I say to people, so here's, I think, how I came up with the concept of brain glue, and it's profound. People are making millions of dollars, or something like you were doing. You didn't take it from brain glue, but you understood this, that it would be really cool if you had a wake up word. Okay,
Right.
and so my name is James Bond, James I. Bond. I try to let everybody know, because you look up James Bond, you'll never find me. Okay, James I. Bond with quotes, you find lots of stuff. Okay, but when I was young, it was just a pain. Okay. I was born after the books, before the movies. And when the movies started coming out, I was terrorized. Okay. That was fine. But I love it now. It's lots of fun. People hear James Bond, they laugh. So I'm walking with my wife, and we're just doing walking exercise. And we're walking around this church that's near where we are, just because they have this whole big land thing. And there's a trailer, and a man and a woman with a dog. The dog started barking at us. We started petting him. And then they came out and they said, "Oh, hey, hi. I'm Mary, and I'm John, and he's Mary. What's your names?" And I said, "I'm James, and this is Pam." Okay, so they have to remember our names. Then I paused for a moment, and I said, "Actually, my name is James Bond." And he stopped and he went, "Really? Do you think he's ever going to, if I'm ever walking that area, do you think he's ever going to forget my name?" Never, because there's something
Mm-mm.
about, he's James Bond. I walk into a room with 400 people. I mean, I do stuff for the U.S. Small Business Administration. So we'll have like 500, 600, 700 business owners that I'm doing workshops for. And everybody knows my name. I got to remember people's names. What's your name? What's your name? I mean, I know yours. You're Jennie, okay?
Yeah.
You rock. But it's just I have to remember everybody's name because they remember my name like that because it sticks to the brain. And
Yeah.
so in marketing, when we come up with a way, you always start logic, okay? Like the toilet stool. You start logic. What is it? It's a toilet stool. You always, once you start with the logic, the logical tool, the name or
Right.
description, then you come up with metaphors. Metaphors is a really good way to start with. It's just like dot, 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 okay? And be as crazy as possible. Let me give you a really crazy example, okay? So Paul Tran invented an electric razor for men's private areas. I don't want to get too much into this, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
But so he's thinking, I want to come up with a name that doesn't offend people, but everybody knows what it is and it's easy to remember. What can I call it? It's just like a lawnmower. Why don't I call it the lawnmower? Okay. The lawnmower became so successful that he actually changed the name of his company to Manscaped. I landscape a man with the lawnmower. Okay. I was in, I think, Bed Bath and Beyond or one of those stores, and it said the lawn. It was a big poster, and it said the lawnmower. Okay, on a white background with an arrow pointing to the electric razor. And I'm like, the lawnmower? What the heck's that? And I started reading it. Oh, okay, that's what it is. Okay, it got my attention. How many posters do you not look at? Okay, you're
Oh
looking
my
at the lawnmower.
gosh.
And, lawnmower? What? And so if I never bought one, but if I did, I wouldn't share it with my friends. Let's start there, okay? But I can see calling my friend Joe and say, "Hey Joe, guess what I just bought? What'd you buy? I bought the lawnmower. Why? You have to mow your lawn? No, no, no. It's for shaving man's private area." Oh, he turned to his wife. Hey Jerry, guess what James just bought? What? The lawnmower. Why? He has to mow his lawn? No, to shave him. This is private areas. Laughing, and then you share it because it becomes viral. Hey, guess what? James just bought
Oh
what the
yeah.
lawnmower. What's that? The lawn? Look up the lawnmower. Oh wow, it's a pretty cool shaver. But it's funny, and it spreads like viral, like the viruses spread, and that's what you want is you want a name or a description of your product that spreads like virus because it works with phrases, it works with slogans too. Like Morton Salt is a blockbuster salt company, okay? And they're for over 100 years they've dominated the salt industry because
Yeah.
of their slogan. And it said, when it rains, it pours. They came up with the idea originally. They were back in the days when salt would, clog up, would just, cluster. And they figured out how to mix it with something else. I don't know what they mix it with. And suddenly it flows really smoothly. So it pours really smoothly. So they probably went pours. It pours really smoothly. What else pours? When it rains, it pours. Oh, why don't we say when it rains, it pours? We get a girl with an umbrella and rain falling on her. And we say Morton Salt. When it rains, it pours. And a lot of people, I tell them when it rains, it pours. They don't even remember the name Morton Salt, but they remember the slogan, and they have one. Okay,
Right.
because
Yeah.
it takes off like gangbusters. I mean, when you start to understand the power of brain glue, you start going, oh wow, I mean,
Yeah.
it works.
And so what comes up for me in this is a lot of the people who listen to this podcast in particular are with network marketing or MLM companies. So they aren't necessarily in charge of naming the products. So it seems to me that after having listened to what you're talking about with this, that we wouldn't necessarily be renaming the products themselves, but in order to help people remember who we are and what we do, if we can find a metaphor, an alliteration, something that rhymes. So if they can say, well, this is my product and it's like, and then share the metaphor, hopefully the metaphor is alliterated or rhyming or funny or has a trigger word, like all these different things that are possible for a network marketer. So what I want to do is anybody who's sitting there listening to this thinking to themselves, but I'm not in charge of naming the products. Okay, cool. You still can use all of these techniques from brain glue in order to help people remember who you are, in order to help people remember the products that you represent, right? To be able to do that, because I think all of this is incredibly powerful because again, like I said, I shifted based on how people started introducing me after the podcast. came out, right? She's the badass coach. She's the badass trainer. She's the badass consultant, right? Like, oh yeah, okay, well, that's how everybody's going. So let's go that direction. It's working. Let's do it, right? So just following that. So what I'd recommend for my badass crew is to sit down and brainstorm all the different things. What are the metaphors that your products could go with? What are some alliterations or rhymes or something funny? Of course, it helps if it's funny because a lot of the listeners who reach out to me to say that they started listening to my podcast say they started listening because they saw the cover art of me in a corset holding a whip.
I saw that one.
Right? And they're like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. It's a business podcast with a kinky theme. This is like people find it hilarious. They get the joke because Badass Direct Sales Mastery, BDSM, ha ha ha. I don't actually whip anybody. We whip businesses into shape. That's what we do, right? It's funny, right? But it sticks with people. They remember that. And especially when I show up in outfits that are not your typical conservative business outfits when I go networking in person. But in addition to this, because I know we have to wrap up because my listeners only have so much time, and I could talk to you about this forever. And when you come out with Brain Glue 2 or a second edition or whatever, we're going to have another conversation around this and maybe dig even deeper with your book. But what I want to share with the badass crew, my listeners, is you are offering a part of the book for free for them. Yes. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So if you go to minibrainglue.com, MINI brainglue.com, it'll take you to a chapter of the book. So I changed it a little bit. So I put some really cool stuff inside there. I mean, there's cool stuff in the book, but you can't because I'm always learning new things, badass things. So, but if you do minibrainglue.com, it'll take you to a freebie that you can, at least understand how it works. And again, to me, the biggest thing you want to do is always start with a metaphor, but be as crazy as possible. Like the lawnmower. Okay.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought he was going to come up with a name like that? But also slogans. And that's where if you can't change the name, Blue Emu didn't change the name. It works fast and you won't stink. What? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's my construction guys, they didn't change the name of their company, but we described it as the fire extinguisher for insurance company. They went, okay, and that stuck to the brain. And so that's why, I think it'll be really powerful. But yeah, minibrainglue.com, that's a good place to start.
There we go. So, of course, my badass crew knows to find that link in the show notes. But if this is your first time listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery podcast and you're thinking to yourself, show notes, what are show notes? All you have to do is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under James Bond's picture, and you will find the link to minibrainglue.com so that you can get your copy of the chapter from Brain Glue to check out if you would like to go purchase the book to go deeper, to get more information about how you can utilize this for your business and marketing your business. James, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with my audience.
Well, I'm not brilliant. I'm lucky, but I figured it out. But thank you, Jennie. You are rocking. I love your podcast. Love, love, love it. And thank you for having me on. It's really an honor to be here.
Oh, awesome sauce. Thank you again. And badass crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.